In this video, I'm going to show you how to use the dropdown node inside a form, including both static and dynamic dropdown options. Let's get started. The main purpose of the dropdown node is to display a list of options that users can choose from. To add a dropdown, simply double-click on the canvas, search for dropdown, and add the node to your form. Once it's added, head over to the design section and enter your question. This is what the user will see when filling out the form. Now, to configure the options, go to the settings panel. Inside the data source section, you'll see 3 different ways to add drop-down options. The first method is manual. Here you can directly type your options. Just enter a value, press enter, and continue adding as many options as you need. This is the simplest way when you already know your list. You can also configure basic settings like setting a default value, making the field required, customizing the button label, and adding placeholder text. You also get control over how the drop-down behaves, whether it allows single selection, multiple selection, or even range-based selection. Additionally, you can control how options are displayed, like sorting them alphabetically or shuffling them. Once done, you can preview the form and see how the drop-down appears to the user. The second method is pulling data from TinyTables. Let's say you already have a data set, for example, a list of doctors stored in a TinyTable. Instead of manually entering each option, you can fetch them directly. To do this, first add a Find All Records node before the dropdown. Configure it by selecting your table and applying any filters, for example, ensuring names are not empty. Once that node is ready, go back to your dropdown settings and select Pull from TinyTable. Then map the output from the Find All Records node and select the column you want to use as your dropdown options. When you preview the form now, you'll see that all options are automatically fetched from your database, no manual input needed. Now, one important thing to understand here is that this setup is completely dynamic. Let's say you go back to your TinyTable and add more records or update existing data. When you return to your form and refresh it, the drop-down options will automatically reflect those changes. There is no need to reconfigure anything, no need to update the node again. The third method is dynamic. Here you can fetch drop-down options from any external source like APIs, integrations, or webhook responses. The key requirement is that your data should be in an array format. For example, you can use a Slack integration to fetch a list of users. Add a Slack list users node, configure it, and then map its output inside the drop-down node under the dynamic option. You can define which field should act as the label and which should act as the value. For instance, you can display the full name of users in the drop-down. Once mapped, preview the form and you'll see that the drop-down is now dynamically populated from your integration. So these are the 3 ways to use the drop-down node in TinyForms. You can go manual, pull from TinyTables, or make it fully dynamic using integrations and APIs depending on your use case. And honestly, all it takes is a TinyCommand